Yep, okay, cool. Where's my statement? Here it is.
There.
Pursuant to Section 5, Chapter 231, Public Law 1975, this is to state for the record that adequate notice of this meeting has been provided to the public by posting and maintaining the annual notice statement of regular meeting. Here it is.
There.
Pursuant to Section 5, Chapter 231, Public Law 1975, this is to state for the record that adequate notice of this meeting has been provided to the public by
happening?
posting and maintaining the annual notice statement of regular meeting. Here it is.
There.
Pursuant to Section 5, Chapter 231, Public Law 1975, this
It's
is
like
to
a-
state for the record that adequate notice
Hang
of
on.
this meeting has been provided to the public by posting and maintaining the annual notice statement of regular meeting. Here it is.
Yeah, let's
There.
fix this.
Pursuant to Section 5, Chapter 231, Public Law 1975.
Oh my God, you're on a loop.
It's like
State for the record that
You're on a
adequate
loop.
notice
Hang
of
on.
this meeting has been provided to the public by posting and maintaining the annual.
Technical difficulties, please stand by.
Okay, I'm afraid to talk. Do I have to reread the whole thing or just, everybody's heard it like 5 times? I'll just go to by mailing the annual notice of regular meetings for 2024 to the
difficulties,
News
please
Record
stand by.
and Star Ledger in December 2023.
okay.
I'm afraid
by
by filing said notice. in
Do I have to
office of
reread the whole thing or just
Township.
the-
Everybody's
Yeah.
heard it like 5 times. I'll just go to by mailing the annual notice of regular meetings for 2024 to the
difficulties,
News
please
Record
stand by.
and
Well, if it helps anybody feel better, I have no report, so.
test. Okay, do you want me to say more? Do you want me to just lead the Pledge of Allegiance? Okay, everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mayor, I need to read my statement and take a roll call.
I'm sorry?
I need to read my statement and take.
Oh, I'm sorry. We were just trying to test the mic. Okay, yes, please. Thank you.
Can I try it now?
Not Luke.
Right,
Here.
Daffis,
Present.
Luca. Here. Engel.
Here.
Mayor Adams.
Here.
Whereas Chapter 231, Public Laws 1975, commonly known as the Open Public Meetings Act, requires that all meetings of public bodies be open to the public. And whereas Section 7A provides that the governing body has the discretion to permit, prohibit, or regulate the active participation of the public at any meeting, and whereas desire the governing body to comply with the provisions of this act, same time to conduct its business in an orderly and expeditious manner, now therefore be resolved by the Township Committee, Township Maplewood does hereby prohibit, except as set forth in the formal agenda, active participation in deliberations of the governing body by the public, and except as otherwise prescribed by law, does limit the public to the observations of the actions and discussion of the governing body at all of its regular and special meetings.
Moved.
Second.
Ms. Kripe?
Yes.
Mr. Daffis?
Yes.
Mr. DeLuca?
Yes.
Ms. Engel?
Yes.
Mayor Adams?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Tuesday, October 15th meeting of the Maplewood Township Committee. I'll just run through real quickly. We have two proclamations, one for the Community Coalition on Race and one for Italian Heritage Month. The first will be read by Mr. DeLuca, the second by Ms. Kripe. Boards and committees, we have one appointment to the Maplewood Swimming Pool Advisory Committee of Sandra Kopitek. And then we have public comment for agenda items only. Then we have one ordinance on final is that all on final passage?
Three.
Yeah, three. Three on final passage, ordinance for the code with historic preservation part that went to the planning board at its last meeting and coming back to us for second approval. Ordinance for amending chapter 123 with respect to food trucks and their fees, and then ordinance amending chapter 257 for vehicles on traffic. That's with regard to no parking being allowed on South Orange Avenue by the top apartment building where they exit. Then we have no introductions of new ordinances tonight. Then we have administrative reports, Mr. Weary, Ms. Credidio, and Ms. Fritzen. Then we have reports from elected officials, Committee Member Daffis, Committee Member Engel, Deputy Mayor Kripe, and Committee Member DeLuca, and then me. We have three discussion items on for tonight: a containment ordinance discussion, crossing guards discussion, and allowing parking on a portion of Inwood Place. And then we will go through our consent agenda. Then we'll go to second public comment on any subject matter, and then we will adjourn. But I just want to make a statement before we get to the proclamations. So first, I want to extend my best wishes to a speedy recovery for our police officer who was working the county's road construction job on Valley near the Crescents when he was struck by a driver turning onto Valley Street. Our officer needed to be transported to the hospital to receive medical attention. We just want to say how sorry we are this happened and hope that his healing is going well. Second, I extend heartfelt concern for the children and their families who were involved in the traffic accident last week on Prospect Street at Oakland. I sincerely hope your children are recovering well, both mentally and physically, and I totally understand how distressing this situation must be for you. These two incidents illustrate the need for drivers to be alert and cautious as they are driving in our town. At the last Township Committee meeting, at the request of Milburn Mayor Romano, who had asked several mayors in the area to promote safety, I made a statement to remind drivers that schools are open and to remember to drive safely and be alert to pedestrians. This is even more important now. I know we are going to talk about crossing guards later in the meeting, but I wanted to update you on what we've been talking about and what we've been doing since then. We have discussed the area of Prospect at Elmwood and Oakland with Engineering and Public Works Committee led by Mr. DeLuca, and are discussing options for physical modifications to it. We set up cones to reduce speed and added in-street signs and all the rest pending decisions on more permanent changes. We are putting these temporary conditions up. We have put out a vehicle speed sign, trailer on Prospect Street, and then we discussed the accident, where the accident occurred at Public Safety last week, and emphasized the need for more traffic enforcement, especially during school commuting hours. These incidents and your concerns highlight the need for better communication about the safest routes to school and clearer guidance for both students and drivers in the area. I have asked the school superintendent to work with us and with South Orange to create an education campaign for all residents with regard to traffic safety for both drivers and pedestrians, particularly our school kids. We are working together with the schools, starting with our meeting this morning, to create a campaign that will teach students through their classroom teachers about pedestrian safety, including crossing streets in a crosswalk and how to make sure drivers see them and how important it is for them to pay attention when crossing the street. We are also working in this new temporary committee on a visual campaign of posters in all classrooms and school buildings and on social media and our town's websites. The superintendent is also reaching out to student groups and clubs in the high school for help in working in this campaign, and will be working with them on effective strategies for implementing it. I want to reassure you, the public, that we are constantly reviewing our town's infrastructure to prevent future incidents like the one on Prospect, and I can ensure that the Township is committed to making viable adjustments to improve pedestrian safety. We will also continue working with the local schools to promote safe practices for students walking to and from school. So with that, I will ask Mr. DeLuca to please read the Community Coalition on Race proclamation.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't see anybody here from the coalition.
Thursday night, I guess.
No. Okay. Okay, this is the Community Coalition on Race Month 2024. Whereas the South Orange Maplewood Community Coalition on Race celebrates over 25 years of working to build and sustain a community that is racially, culturally, and socially integrated and truly inclusive, where there is equity and equality for all. And whereas hundreds of residents in our two town communities participate and benefit from coalition-sponsored forums, discussions, publications, and activities. And whereas the Community Coalition proudly sponsors the annual Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Observance and Luminary Project, and whereas the coalition schedules other events throughout the year, including conversations on race, coffeehouse discussions on issues like racial wealth gap, policing, and more, anti-bias and anti-racism training, talking to children about race workshops and integrated art circles. And whereas the coalition supports equity and inclusion through the Wealth Gap Equalizer Loan Program, the annual preschool open house, the Realtor Advisory, the Neighborhood Summit, and affirmative community marketing. And whereas the Community Coalition has partnered with local civic, community, educational, and faith-based organizations to sponsor pro-integrative initiatives that continue to position Maplewood and South Orange as models for communities around the country. Now, therefore, on behalf of Mayor Nancy Adams and the Maplewood Township Committee, I, Victor DeLuca, do hereby proclaim the month of October 2024 as Community Coalition on Race Month in the Township of Maplewood, and in so doing affirm the continued commitment of the Township of Maplewood to support the mission of the South Orange Maplewood Community Coalition on Race.
Thank you. We also have an Italian Heritage Month proclamation.
Thank you, Mayor. The proclamation for Italian Heritage Month. Whereas the month of October is designated as Italian Heritage Month to celebrate the rich culture, history, and contributions of Italian Americans to the fabric of our nation, and whereas the state of New Jersey has long been home to a vibrant and proud Italian American community, with millions of residents who trace their ancestry back to Italy, making significant contributions in the fields of arts, education, business, government, and beyond. And whereas Italian Americans have played an integral role in the development of our state, bringing with them the values of family, hard work, and community, and while preserving their cultural traditions and sharing them with others. And whereas Italian Americans, immigrants helped shape the United States through their dedication and labor, overcoming adversity and discrimination, and leaving a legacy of determination, resilience, and success. And whereas Italian American Heritage Month provides an opportunity for all residents to learn more about the historical and cultural achievements of Italian Americans, while also recognizing their continued contributions to our society today. And whereas the Italian-American community has significantly enriched the diversity and multiculturalism of New Jersey, fostering an appreciation for Italian arts, language, food, and traditions that are now part of our state's cultural landscape. Now, therefore, on behalf of Mayor Nancy Adams, of the Township of Maplewood, and on behalf of the Maplewood Township Committee, I do hereby proclaim the month of October as Italian Heritage Month in Maplewood, and encourage all citizens to honor and celebrate the contributions of Italian Americans to the progress and culture of our great country. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on to Pool Advisory Committee. Ms. Engel.
Thank you so much. Ms. Kopitek, do you want to come up to the podium and just introduce yourself and say why you would like to join the Pool Advisory Committee? Yeah.
Is that mic on?
Make sure the mic is green on the bottom.
Right in front of you. We got it.
It's a race.
Good evening. Again, my name is Sandra Kopitek, and I've lived in Maplewood since 2003. My oldest daughter is now 16, and it wasn't until that she was born and I had my second daughter that we joined the pool. And I feel that's when we really became part of the community. Before that, it was just, with single or married without kids, working and just coming home and doing it all over again. So it wasn't until after we started taking them to the pool that I met my neighbors and really felt like we became part of the community. Both my daughters grew up, well, since then, have been swimming with the Makos team. They are competitive swimmers, so they swim pretty much all the time. So we're pretty much part of the pool, and I feel that it's a very much important part of the community, and I'd like to try to bring any kind of ideas or help to make it better for everyone and have more people join, so forth.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'll also add that you've been the parent volunteer coordinator for the past couple of years for the Makos, which is a tough job to wrangle all those parents. So, you should applaud yourself
For
on
the
that.
bagels?
For the
Makos.
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 Any questions from my colleagues for Ms. Kopitek?
No, not for me.
No.
So with that, I move Sandra Kopitek to join the Pool Advisory Committee with a term ending December 31st, 2026.
Seconded.
Ms. Bright,
Yes.
Mr. Daffis,
Yes, congratulations.
Luca,
Yes.
Ms. Engel,
Yes.
Mayor Adams.
Yes, thank you and congrats.
Thank you. Welcome.
Fellow 2003 mover.
Thank you so much. And you're welcome to stay and watch the rest of our meeting or go home and hang out with your family.
And watch the game.
Okay, with that, now we move to public comment for agenda items only. I invite members of the public who are here to address the Township Committee. You come up to the microphone, and you have 3 minutes to speak. You give your name and address and talk to us. Agenda items include the discussion item for crossing guards, so if anything's related to the accident that I referenced, you can speak now too. Hi. Oops, yeah, you're taller.
I'm Jacob Lambert. I live on Oakland Road. You can probably guess what I'm here to talk about. I just want to say, Mayor Adams, you said a lot of nice, good things tonight about the crossing guard situation and that Oakland Road and everything that's happened. But a lot of good things were also said last Wednesday, and I don't feel like appropriate action has been taken yet. Orange cones in the road are not enough to protect our kids from the drivers on Prospect. It's an incredibly dangerous spot, and the day that the cones were put down, they'd already been knocked over. I don't know what the real intent is there to make it look like our concerns are being taken seriously, but I don't feel that they are. I went around and got signatures the last couple of days on this petition, and almost everyone I talked to in that area has a horror story about that intersection. Something really needs to be done, and it's not traffic cones. We need an adult there when there's kids. I don't disagree that more education is needed for drivers because clearly people don't care. But we need, at minimum, a crossing guard. Traffic cones is not going to cut it. I'm sorry. So I hope you take this seriously because I'm taking it super seriously. I know we don't have the cast of thousands I was hoping would show up tonight, but a lot of people are out there hoping that something is done because people are legitimately scared to cross the street, not just there, but in a lot of spots in Maplewood. So please take this seriously.
I assure you we do. Can you leave the petition with the clerk?
Mr. Lambert, can you tell us what the petition says, what it calls for, and how many signatures you have?
You're going to have to go
Here at the mic? Okay.
We can read it when the clerk will distribute it to us. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Hi.
My name is Jonah Davis. I am a resident of Maplewood. Am I supposed to give my address where I live? 39 Brookwood Drive. I didn't write anything down. I didn't really plan to speak tonight, but hearing your opening remarks and hearing what Jay said, I do come in support of Jay and his daughter and his friend and her daughter's friend, his daughter's friend, who were involved in the accident. I think that infrastructure is an important part of the equation, but to echo what Jay said, I am dumbfounded at the driver behavior and the driver volume in this town. I don't know where these cars came from. There are lines at almost every traffic light heading to the train station, heading towards the schools. It didn't feel like this last year. I don't know what has happened. I mean, I have some ideas. I know there's a lot of theories around the changing of the. I'm losing my memory for the word for how people are going to schools in different parts of the town.
Intentional
Yes,
integration.
thank you. And so people are driving further. There's a lack of buses, and on top of that, greater traffic creates greater stress, more reckless driving, and it just seems to be chaos. And so I don't know what the solutions are. I have not done my research. Like this all came. This is all just in the last couple of days where I've opened my eyes to this issue, given how real the fallout has been. But it appears to me that there is an element of driver behavior and driver discipline that needs to be enforced, whether that is greater enforcement by police, or whether it's requirements for license renewal, depending on age. I think there are just a lot of options, and I would suggest and invite the town to consider all possible options to try to figure out how to calm the situation.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak?
Hi. My name is Mia Tanner. I live at 3 Suffolk Avenue, and I'm a 7th grader at Maplewood Middle School. And when I usually walk to school, me and my friend Maya, we usually walk together to go to the corner of where my friends' houses are, and then we walk with them down to school. So we had picked them up that day, and usually Maya and one of our other friends walk down a bit faster than some of us. So when we had gotten to the corner of that street, they had already like crossed, and we had to usually wait a bit to cross because there's like no traffic light there. And so we waited, and then we started to cross the street. And then out of the corner of my eye, I saw like this car, and it kind of like came out of nowhere. So I kind of just like stepped back a bit, and then that happened. And it was like, it didn't even feel like real. It just felt like crazy. Like it felt like I was like imagining it in my head, and then everything after that was like random events that just happened. So, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for coming up. Anyone else like to speak?
Hi there, my name is Paul Berger. I live in South Orange. I hadn't actually planned on speaking this evening. My kids go to South Orange Middle School and Columbia High School, and most days they walk, and I feel safe knowing that they're walking because at most of the busy intersections that they cross, even actually on Titchener Avenue where I live, which is not very busy at all, there's a crossing guard. And I just think crossing guards, obviously they help, right? They attract the driver's attention, they kind of stop the kids from crossing when it's not safe, and then they help them across the road. By chance this morning, I was actually driving down Prospect around 7:20 a.m., 7:25, and even knowing what happened with the kids, and also like always trying to be a careful driver and knowing the town and the roads really well. It was kind of weird when I got to the section with the cones in them. As a driver, I actually found it a little bit disorienting because suddenly the road was kind of narrowing like that, but I still had, you know, a car up my ass and people all around. And I remember there was, maybe it was a dad and his kid at the side, and I noticed them come towards the crosswalk and wasn't sure whether to brake suddenly in case they wanted to cross, or keep going because I was worried that the person behind me would hit me. And in that split second, I made the decision to keep going. But as a driver, I just found it like a very stressful situation to be in. And so, you know, I work as a reporter. I've covered transportation for like 10 years. And I know that often people blame motorists or motorists blame pedestrians, but I think often these are just accidents that are preventable. And I just think that whatever measures you're looking at, it seems to me like a crossing guard who can stop traffic when it needs to be stopped, stop pedestrians when they need to be stopped, especially when you're dealing with kids going to school. It just seems like the most sensible solution. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the room want to speak? We have hands up online.
If any members of the public joining us on Zoom would like to speak in public portion, please raise your hand now.
Okay, but we have a.
Yep.
Yeah. Hi.
Good evening. My name is Erin Scherzer. I live at 49 Oberlin Street, and I'm a parent of a 7th grader at Maplewood Middle School. Many of you have known my daughter literally since we moved to town almost 12 years ago, and we were pushing her in a baby carriage, that bright yellow baby carriage. And now that child that you all knew and watched her grow up now walks to Maplewood Middle School on her own. My child has shared with me times when drivers do not stop, don't pay attention to gaggles of kids walking to school with big backpacks that are actually a little bigger than them. She has shared times, despite representation from the police department, that the corner of Harvard and Prospect does not have a crossing guard, and there's not another officer there to cover that intersection. That's already an area that has been designated, and there are times where there's no coverage at all. While I appreciate the action that's coming into place, it is unacceptable that we are now 8 days after this incident where 2 children could have died, that there is not a human being at that corner to cross the street. As a taxpayer, and we are all taxpayers here, we would like information on how much extra it will cost to have a human being at multiple corners throughout this town. It would be good to have a human being at the corner of Oakland and Prospect. It would be good to have a human being at the corner of Oakview and Prospect. And we do a lot of services in our town, but life and safety has to be the #1 priority. I can appreciate better communication and encouraging our children to cross the street, but I can 100% guarantee that every child that crosses that road, whether to go to Maplewood Middle, Tuscan, Clinton High School, crossing over to go to Seth Boyden, going to Clinton, they know how to cross these streets. Because from a very young age, when they sat in their baby carriage, they saw their parents teaching them how to cross that road. Signs in classrooms is not going to change this. It changes when you have a human being there redirecting and rechanging action, similarly to the last person who spoke. We pay a lot in taxes here, and what I would like my taxpayer dollars spent on is not another movie night, not another event at the Woodland. I would like a human being to make sure my daughter and her classmates, who are incredibly beautiful, powerful, smart people, to be able to go to school and not have fear. I look forward to continuing to follow up, and I hope the next time I'm here, I'm not reciting the number of days that there hasn't been a crossing guard there. And I would like to point out as the last comment, while I'm very sad that a police officer was hit in the line of duty, that officer was wearing body gear and a bright green shirt. These children don't have that. They have no protection on them. You need to put a human there to protect them. Thank you.
No, there's someone coming, Pat.
There are no raised hands on Zoom, Mayor.
Okay, go ahead, you can come on up.
Hi, my name is Maya Elise. I'm also a 7th grader at MMS. I live at 32 Ball Terrace, and I was the friend. Me and my other friend were walking up ahead, and we were like, "Oh wait, we should wait for our other friends," because like we wanted to stop and wait for them. But like so, we sort of just waiting up ahead, and like I heard my friend Kate, who was the one who hurt her ankle, like scream, and I turned around, and like a rush of like sort of like panic and worry sort of hit me, and, like the few days after that, we like walked down towards the Crescents where there like was a crossing guard, but like now we still walk there, but like still not the same like safeness like that we feel. So like it would be better than just like orange cones there, like like an actual person, like the last person said, to like help us cross the road easier. Yeah.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the chambers here who would like to speak? Okay. Oh.
Hi, I'll be fast. Malia Herman, 6 South Crescent. So we live right between Valley Street and Prospect, these 2 streets that had these accidents. And I did actually sign that petition, so you'll see my name on it, because I do think we need a crossing guard on Prospect, maybe more than one, but I do think that's important. And until we get a guard there, I do think we should have maybe a police officer helping the children cross. I did want to also point out that a lot of times kids cross when it's not school hours, because, you know, and especially with the intentional integration initiative, they're making friends all across town. And so they are crossing when they're going to their friend's house on the weekend and after school. So it's another reason why we really need to be looking at complete streets and Vision Zero. Vision Zero means no deaths, no one getting hurt from cars. So that's the goal, and that's what we should be striving toward. And I did also want to mention that on Valley, there's a section of sidewalk right in front of my house that has gravel on it, and there are actually no cones there. And the kids have to walk down that sidewalk when they cross Valley at Baker. So if you're kind of picturing sort of where that is. So we actually had a postman cutting through our yard and going through our trees. And I told him, can you please use the sidewalk? And he's like, what sidewalk? I'm going to get hit. And it's this big, post guy.
With the construction, you mean?
It's the construction, and they've got cones in other areas, but they really should put cones protecting like that, like signifying that that's like a sidewalk.
Pat, you
So-
follow up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a crossing guard.
So I would just want to point that out as well. But anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to address the Township Committee? Okay, seeing none. We'll move to ordinances on final passage.
Mayor, number 8, ordinance on final passage, ordinance number 3129-24 is an ordinance to amend Chapter 271 of the Code of the Township of Maplewood entitled Zoning and Development Regulations. This ordinance will amend Article 8, Historic Preservation of Chapter 271 of the Township Code to modify the procedures by which applications for demolition permits for principal structures located in residential zones are reviewed and approved.
This ordinance has been published, copies posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building, and copies made available to the general public in accordance with the law. Is there anyone here who would like to address the Township Committee regarding this ordinance? Anyone online, Mr. Weary?
If anyone joining us on Zoom would like to speak on this ordinance, please raise your hand now. I see no hands, Mayor.
Seeing none, may I get a motion, Mr. DeLuca?
Mr. Daffis.
Oh, sorry. Oh, DD, sorry.
No worries.
Not BD.
No worries, Mayor. I move this ordinance be adopted as a whole and the clerk be directed to publish the same as a passed ordinance in the Maplewood South Orange News Record according to law.
Second.
Ms. Cripe?
Yes.
Mr. Daffis?
Yes.
Mr. DeLuca?
Yes.
Ms. Engel?
Yes.
Mayor Adams?
Yes, thank you. We have another ordinance on final.
Can I interrupt? I'm sorry. I'm sorry you had to experience that. I've been sitting in this for a little while, and I watched both of you express trauma response physically. It's what I do for a living, is working with youth, and as I'm watching you wiggle and look down and not make eye contact, it hurt me to know that we got you hurt. We as a collective, as adults, because those were adults out there driving and not paying attention to you and not caring enough about your humanity because we had someplace to go. We have to take this more seriously. And I agree 100% with every single thing every person who came to that mic said. It can't be one tier, and we've got to do something faster because we got real close to losing 2 people in less than 2 in a week. And when I first moved here back in 2003, one of the first things I had actually heard on Maplewood Online, this weird little forum that people used to misbehave at, but yeah, we don't do that anymore, right? Was that you don't speed in Maplewood. That quickly became the past. We need to bring it back. Maplewood needs to be known as the town that you pay attention, or we're going to hit you in your pocketbook until you start paying attention. We're going to make it so uncomfortable for you because you're making it uncomfortable for our kids. You're making it uncomfortable for our commuters. You're making it impossible. We're pushing for bike safety and all these wonderful initiatives to get us out into the streets. What for if the streets aren't going to be safe for us to be out there in them? We've got to do more than just throw quick little solutions at it. If we have to reach out to the county to see whatever resources they have available, if we need to start reaching out and speaking to individual drivers, like, heck, I don't know, have parking people standing there at drop-offs, handing flyers to people saying, hey, if you live this far away, you should leave at this time. Whatever it is that we need to do to help people not feel like they can't walk in a walkable community safely. So again, I am so sorry.
that your experience is that. And you shouldn't have to do that at 7th grade. God, middle school sucks hard enough. You don't need to have it outside of middle school be pressurized like that too. And I'm putting it on all of us, including our chief of police. We've got to do better. We've got to do better. And whatever that looks like, even if it is uncomfortable, sorry, that's the job. We've got to do it. Because we can't have another person hurt over something as silly as just slow down. Slow down and pay attention. I'm sorry, thank you.
It's okay, it's okay. That's why we're discussing the
I know,
one
it
discussion item.
just kind of felt like we
No,
were like,
no.
next.
Yep.
It's literally all good. I know, but it is, yeah, part of it is,
Right.
yeah, to just monitor and wait, so, but appreciate that. I know that hurt. So back to business before we get to the discussion items. We do have business.
Yeah, Mayor, also on final, an ordinance?
Yes, the second ordinance on file.
3130-24 is an ordinance to amend and supplement Chapter 123 of the Code of the Township of Maplewood entitled Fees and Chapter 305 entitled Food Establishments with respect to food trucks. This ordinance will revise permit procedures with respect to food trucks.
This ordinance has been published, copies posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building, and copies made available to the general public in accordance with the law. Is there anyone here who would like to speak to this ordinance? Mr. Wary, anybody online?
If any members of the public on Zoom would like to speak on this ordinance, please raise your hand now. I see no hands, Mayor.
Okay, with that, can we get a motion, Mr. Daffis?
Certainly, Mayor. I move this ordinance be adopted as a whole and the clerk be directed to publish the same as a passed ordinance in the Maplewood South Orange News Record according to law.
I'll second.
Ms. Wright?
Yes.
Mr. Daffis?
Yes.
Mr. DeLuca?
Yes.
Sengel?
Yes.
Mayor Adams?
Yes, thank you. Third ordinance on final.
Yes, Mayor. Item 8C, ordinance 3131-24, ordinance amending and supplementing Chapter 257 of the Township Code entitled Vehicles and Traffic to implement parking limits on a portion of South Orange Avenue. This ordinance will add a no parking area on a portion of South Orange Avenue.
This ordinance has been published, copies posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building, and copies made available to the general public in accordance with the law. Is there anyone here who would like to speak on this ordinance? Mr. Wary.
Any public on Zoom would like to speak on this ordinance, please raise your hand now. I see no hands, Mayor.
Okay, may I get a motion this time, Mr.
I move this ordinance be adopted as a whole and the clerk be directed to publish the same as a passed ordinance in the Maplewood South Orange News Record according to law.
I'll second.
Ms. Wright?
Yes.
Mr. Daffis?
Yes.
Mr. DeLuca?
Yes.
Sengel?
Yes.
Mayor Adams?
Yes, thank you. We'll move on to administrative reports right now, Mr. Wary.
Thank you, Mayor. One report, happy to announce that the consent agenda tonight includes the hiring of a public information officer, Kristen Downey, so we're very thankful for that. This was a position funded in the 2024 budget, new position to the township, part-time, plenty of work to be done, so we are excited for them to start next week. We had a very competitive process with over 75 applicants, many very, very high-quality applicants, many applicants from Maplewood, so competitive process, and congratulations to Ms. Downey on being selected.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Wary from the Township Committee? None? Okay. We'll move on to our Township Attorney, Ms. Credidio. No report, Mayor. Any questions for Ms. Credidio? Okay. We'll go to Ms. Fritzen, our clerk.
Just a couple of things, Mayor. First, I want to just lead off to indicate that my office is open straight through till 9 o'clock tonight for voter registration, and I'm noticing it's about 45 minutes, so if you are not registered to vote for the upcoming November presidential general election. You may come down to the Township Clerk's office. I have a staff that would be happy to walk you through the application process to become a registered voter for November.
Great.
Secondly, I just wanted to mention that we have, let's see, 3 events coming up. We have volunteer appreciation dinner coming up next Monday with great participation. Of course, an election will follow that. And for over a month, we've had all the particulars up on the Township website with all the dates, all the places that you could do early voting if you chose to, and all the deadlines for vote by mail ballots, and of course, any questions that come in, walk-ins, and on the phone, we're happy to answer. And then we'll be going into probably my favorite activity that we do here, and that's Veterans Day. And that'll be on November 11th, right here in this room.
It's a Monday.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Fritzen? Okay, we'll move on to elected officials. We'll start with Committee Member Daffis.
Thank you, Mayor. Deputy Mayor Kripe, I just want to thank you for centering us. It is very difficult to segue into what seems to be superficial matters, but I will get through my report of the other business that we're doing in the township so that we can quickly get to the crossing guard discussion. Yesterday was Monday, second Monday in October, which we have proclaimed as Indigenous Peoples Day. South Orange hosted a celebration this year. We hosted last year. We didn't make a proclamation tonight. It didn't make the agenda, but hopefully we can include one with the next agenda in honor of the Lenape people whose land we inhabit today. And I just kind of remind us to keep that ongoing tradition. When I was mayor, I opened every meeting with a land acknowledgement, which I know is not everybody's cup of tea, but it is important if we're serious about Indigenous people and their contribution and our being an inclusive community to keep doing those things. I remind us that we removed a statue, a Columbus statue, out of the park here in Maplewood. We had a very successful art walk this past weekend on Sunday. Record attendance, I hear, an ever-expanding group of artists. I'd like to thank all of our participating artists and vendors, and to our Maplewood Village manager, Erin Rose Baldry, and to Geraldine Robinson, our tireless founder and chair of the art walk that we do every year in October. On Friday, we celebrated and honored the 36th annual National Coming Out Day by having a Coming Out Day celebration right here outside on the plaza, our third one thus far. We held space, we shared story of self, and once again, our youth showed their strength, their resilience, and their love, including my trans nephew, Caden, who joined us from Fanwood, where they don't do what we do in Maplewood. And that's the point. That's why we do it here, even if only one kid shows up, because we are a beacon of hope. We are a leader. On October 7th, on Monday, October 7th, yeah, it was on Monday, I and committee member DeLuca were able to attend a one-year 10/7 commemoration ceremony, standing in solidarity with our Jewish community here and everywhere. It was very moving, affirming, and a very powerful ceremony. I'd like to remind folks, if they haven't already bought their tickets for Men's Gala, MEND, meeting Essential Needs with Dignity. It's at Saturday night, this Saturday night at the Woodland. Mend has been a tremendous partner of ours with respect to our food shed, and they've become a regional strong leader in fighting food insecurity. And I've been speaking to them and other relevant stakeholders recently about how we might be able to strengthen our operations at our food shed while continuing fighting food insecurity. The Master Plan Implementation Working Group has been working through zoning recommendations that were made in the recent master plan we adopted last August. And I'm talking here about those that relate to revising, expanding, or retiring certain nodes in our business and commercial districts. I presented an early summary of that proposal at the recent Code Committee to get the conversation started. And the next steps will be to continue exploring this, speaking to the zoning board, zoning officials, gathering input from affected merchants, and even surrounding residents. Our initial discussion was productive and substantive. We touched upon several underlying issues to zoning changes, including our current parking requirements, and also about making sure that our growth and development is smart and thoughtful. Tonight, we will discuss the possibility of adopting a municipal contaminant containment ordinance. Other municipalities have either done or are exploring another item from Code Committee. I'm sure the mayor will update the community about the Maplewood Theater redevelopment draft plan, which we discussed in the Committee on Entrepreneurship and Economic Development last week about where things stand currently. I've started laying the groundwork for reviving our rent leveling board. Our former chair is still serving the community, even while in retirement, in terms of handling rent increase inquiries he receives and other landlord-tenant issues. We will be exploring a revised rent leveling or rent control ordinance for Maplewood. The master plan recommends this too. The Community Board on Police's October meeting this month is at the end of the month, atypical for us, October 30th, and we're preparing for our annual retreat next month, scheduled for November 16th. The Village Center lot, the parking lot behind LK, what used to be Arturo's, milling and paving. The reconstruction of that lot has started this week in terms of staging, and we understand that that project should last about a month, no later than mid-November, fingers crossed. And as you heard from our clerk, Election Day is fast approaching. What is it, 3 weeks from now? There's still time to apply to vote by mail if you think you won't be able to vote on Election Day. There are many opportunities to get involved in a manner that suits your schedule and your preferences. And information about those has been widely disseminated by the local press and local voter engagement groups. Get involved. Please do something. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Staffis?
I just have, not really a question, but a note. For the Maplewood Comes Out Day, I request for next year if we can start a little later, like 3:30, because Maplewood Middle School doesn't get out of school till 3:14. Tuscan doesn't get out till 3:53, and Seth Boyden as well. So it prohibits our Maplewood students from being able to go unless you're at CHS.
Absolutely.
Clinton.
Yeah, and that's exactly what happened. We didn't get started until about 3:30, 3:45. Yep, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, we'll move to Committee Member Agnew.
Thank you. I also want to just thank our parents, but especially our youth, for coming out and speaking today. That was very brave, and I think it's really important to hear from all of you. So thank you. I know you're all staying here, so you'll hear more about our discussion later. I also have a 7th grade at MMS, so this hits really close to home, but it's something we've been talking about for, I feel like, a year already. And so I'm really sorry that this happened to our community. I'm really sorry that this happened to you, and know that we all want everybody in Maplewood to feel safe, and so we're going to be continuing to talk about it. But thank you so much for coming out today. I just have one other update. The MAPSO Follies I keep talking about, and Miriam and I had a chance to be the judges, two of the judges at the auditions, which were really spectacular. I ran into our producer, Tori, today, and she gave me a little preview about the other acts that have sent in submissions, and it's going to be a really, really fun show in November. Video submissions are still being accepted until tomorrow, Wednesday, October 16th. You can send 1 to 3 minute video submissions to mapsofollies@gmail.com. No solo acts. You have to have at least 2 people in an act, and it can be anything. I really think we should have like a family juggling act. So I know there's some performers sitting there, so you can start thinking about what you want to do. And that's my report.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Engel? Okay, thanks. Deputy Mayor Kripe.
I have no report, Mayor.
You're up, Mr. DeLuca.
Thank you, Mayor. So today we had the final event of the Ideas Festival, which was really great. We had the Olympic winners, the Olympic gold medalists from Maplewood, Jackie Dubrovich, and from South Orange, Tierna Davidson, and they were at the Hilton branch of the library, and the place was packed, and the kids really loved seeing their gold medals and asking them all kinds of questions about how they got involved and who they hung out with and at the Olympics and stuff like that. So it was great. So yeah, this is the third event. We had a good event here last week, and then of course we had an event a couple weeks ago at the Woodlands. So the Ideas Festival for this year is concluding. We may have one additional thing if we can put it together, but otherwise next year we'll have it in our new building for 2025. Want to give kudos to the Hilton Neighborhood Association for co-sponsoring the Purge Fest that's happening this Saturday. It's a neighborhood garage sale. We have 70 homes signed up. So if you don't have enough junk in your house, come to our houses.
Happy to bring you
stuff.
Happy to bring you stuff.
We're having dollar days at my house.
I want to, this was put together by the residents, and then the association co-sponsored it, and the town has been great and working, so thank you, Ms. Fritzen. The Springfield Avenue Partnership is having a craft beer tasting and fundraiser on the 24th of October, and that'll be in the parking lot of the Wine Barrel from 6:30 to 9:30, and the Wine Barrel is at 1886 Springfield Avenue. So if you're into drinking, that would be the place to go. And finally, today the township put out an election guide, which was very helpful. Election day is November 5th. We heard today that is the last day to register to vote till 9 o'clock, and that's 32 minutes from now. But there's a lot of other dates. Early voting starts on October 26th, and that is, it goes until November 3rd, and that is 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Saturday, and 10 to 6 on Sunday. There's also mail-in ballots, and you can submit your mail-in ballots up until October 29th. So there's a lot of ways that you can still vote. You can vote early, and you can vote through the mail. We also have a drop box, which is located on Springfield Avenue, and that's where we urge people to go so that we don't have problems with the mail. So, and that's my report, Mayor.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. DeLuca?
Well, just to clarify, you can only come to the beer tasting if you're 21 and up, right?
Yes, because you and I will be the bouncers, and Chief, we're tough.
Yes, see, people have tried to bring their kids in previous years, but you have to be 21 and up to come.
We do allow dogs, but no children.
Only dogs over 7.
Dogs over 3.
Three.
Dogs over 3.
Three.
And we'll card.
Okay. All right, I just have a couple things. I attended the Indigenous People Day celebration in Spiota Park in South Orange yesterday. Deputy Mayor Kripe joined for a while. We were there representing Maplewood for that recognition, and it was cold and windy, but it was
Beautiful.
nicely done. The little library was opened at the DeHart Park on Saturday. Was that Saturday at 1? And that's a contribution will be for kids' books or adults' books. It's located, if you're looking at the community center, it's to the right, like between the basketball court and the building, so that you can donate books for that as well. And that'll be a really great resource for people. At our SEED meeting, which is the Committee for Entrepreneurship and Economic Development, we talked about at length on October 10th, the movie theater redevelopment area. There is a contract purchaser for the movie theater building. It has not closed yet. I don't know whether it'll close. That's part of buying property. So they're going through the process of negotiating with the owner, and we'll see if that closes. If that's the case, it's also the same owners for that contract purchase own the bank building and that corner of that block. So we'll see what happens. We don't know yet, and it's private. To reiterate, it's not township-owned property. We have no involvement in who purchases this building. The redevelopment plan is to lay out what uses through zoning will be permitted in that area. So the redevelopment plan, we had 3 public meetings on that. It is in draft form right now, and we are still discussing it. We will be reaching out to the owners of the prospective owners of the movie theater property to talk with them about what they're thinking of doing there and how that fits with our redevelopment plan that's in process. So more to come on that as we continue to discuss it and figure out what we can do, what we can control, and what we can't control with regard to this private property in the redevelopment area. And then I just want to say, before we get to the discussion on the crossing guards, we do, just to reiterate, thank you for coming and speaking out. I do take issue with one thing. We do take it very seriously. That's why we've been talking internally with all departments. That's why I've been working. The cones are obviously just temporary because we cannot put a physical barrier there yet. And if we are going to do that, part of that process is testing it with cones and seeing how traffic moves and so on and so forth. So it's not perfect, it's not final, and as with most things in democracy, we can't just do everything as fast as we always want it to be done. But we are taking it seriously. I think that's, at least it's abundantly clear to me and to our administrator and my colleagues, because we've been talking about it literally every day since, and talking with our police, with our DPW, with our engineering, and with the school district, which is something I initiated this week to have a meeting with them. And it is a huge part of it is education, frankly, and it's educating drivers who are distracted with their phones. It's educating kids who are distracted with their phones. It's educating everybody who are to pay attention. It is when you step out of your doors, it's a society that you're walking into, and we all have to be mindful that some people may not be taking proper care with what they're doing, so we need to be extra vigilant. So we are taking it very seriously. So any questions for me? No. Okay, great. Thanks. We'll go into discussion items, and we'll start with the containment ordinance that I brought to Code Committee. Mr. Travis.
Yep, thank you, Mayor. So we've discussed this at Code. Apologies for the title not being complete here. It should say containment ordinance. It's very difficult to say. So what is this? This is an ordinance amending our construction code to specifically regulate a contractor's handling of polycarbonate and other materials, including fiberglass, concrete, and pressure-treated wood. Why would we do that? Because the cutting of those materials creates microplastics, and they go everywhere. They become environmental hazards in the water, in the soil. They even contaminate our food. Those of you who know me know that I had open heart surgery earlier this year, back in April. And going into that process, I had so many heart-related tests, like really sophisticated testing. And I found out that when doctors are doing tests on people's hearts these days, they're not just finding cholesterol or hardened arteries, they're finding microplastics in our heart. So think about that, right? This is a serious thing. And so this is an ordinance that basically lays out how contractors are supposed to contain these particles from entering the environment. So the ordinance will help lessen the impact of these waste particles. And it's something that other communities have either adopted or are exploring.
Yeah, I think it was, what shore town was it that we?
Margate.
Margate, I was thinking Marlboro, yeah. Margate did this ordinance, and they have since they're so close to the ocean, they're more inclined, but we have, all our water eventually goes to the ocean. So we need to, I think we need to just like we do for the paint on the side of a house, sanding it, containing that, this ordinance, if we were to pass one, which I hope we do. That's what I brought it there for.
I'd like to invite our township attorney, Ms. Gradidio. Did you want to add anything since you drafted this?
Just a clarification, it will not apply just to contractors. It'll be anyone who is cutting.
Correct. That's correct.
Yeah, some homeowner
Yep.
building something, and so they have to contain like the sawdust or of what they're cutting.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Anyone else want to?
I guess I have some questions. So wait, so it's not just contractors, it's homeowners that are going to be regulated? And I guess my question is like what, I mean, I'm for it, whatever, all the, like not having that. I'm just looking at the other side. So like, I'm guessing there's a cost related to it to have extra stuff, and also like the education component to the homeowners. Like, I'm just curious how this is actually going to be like executed and regulated. So like contractors is one thing, but I'd be curious, just because we did it with the leaf blowers, like what the repercussions are to their businesses and their business model. And then also for if it's also homeowners, I'm just not 100% sure how that like works and what projects would fall
The
under
permit
it.
process.
Through
Yeah.
the permitting process, probably.
Yeah, so homeowners will have to pull a permit from the buildings department on the second floor here to do something like this. And that's when they'll be educated about what they need to do, if we
So
adopt
it's
an
like
ordinance.
big projects, like if you're building your own deck at your house, that kind of thing.
Like with composite material, because
Yeah.
it's microplastics.
You know, a number of the measures in the ordinance, for all that they're effective, are fairly simple. So using a vacuum attachment on power tools, tarping an area,
Tarping it, yeah.
cleaning debris, you know, at least once daily so it doesn't disperse in the wind. Probably the only one that I would think would be more individual is installing filters if there's going to be a drain of stormwater to an inlet, if it runs off your property and it's running into a storm drain. I think that would probably be a measure for a more significant project.
Right.
But the rest of it, I think, is fairly straightforward, low-cost, common-sense approaches that I think have a higher yield result.
Thank you, Ms. Credidio.
Anyone else want to discuss any part of it? DeLuca, anything?
I'm good.
So are we good to move this to ordinance on first reading?
Yeah, but I would like to know, like, if there's a cost related, and I don't know if we've spoken to any contract. I don't know. I just feel like,
I don't think so. I mean, other than when they have to do a larger project, so, but if more and more towns are passing this requirement, they're having to do this kind of protection elsewhere too.
And just to be clear, as our attorney indicated, some of the precautions, if we were to adopt this ordinance, do not require special materials that contractors don't already possess.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't like when we were talking about the leaf blower ordinance, that was a brand new toy that they had to be able to acquire, and that was affordable and accessible and so on and so forth. It was a big impact, right? In this case, we're talking about tarping, we're talking about like things that they already do in construction, if you're doing construction thoughtfully, because you don't want to affect your neighbors, right? So,
Yeah, we have other regulations with regard to the way construction site is protected, so pedestrians don't get hurt. So we require that temporary fencing that the contractor has to get. So I think the costs are minimal compared to the saving of, the microplastics in our water stream.
Thanks for clarifying that it's all stuff that they already have, like tarps and
Yeah.
whatnot. It's nothing new, reinventing.
Yeah.
the wheel.
Okay, so are we okay to put it for first reading? Yes. Okay.
great. We'll do that with the next meeting on the 6th. Thank
Yep.
you.
Thank you. Mr. Daffis, discussion item is crossing guards. Ms. Engel.
Thank you, Mayor. So I put this on the agenda as crossing guards because I feel like last year we started talking about how school placements have changed and how that's having an effect on how kids are walking to school. And we talked about how a whole neighborhood that historically used to go to SOMS, this neighborhood, is now going to MMS. And I feel like we've never holistically looked at what is happening with our kids walking to school, where placements are happening, like geographically, where kids are coming from, where they're going to. And I feel like when I ask questions about, well, how do we decide where crossing guards are going and what metrics do we look at? And we do traffic studies for traffic calming. Is there any kind of studies that we can do for walking? Or how are all these things determined? I don't really get many answers, and I just felt like we needed to talk about it here a little bit because there are more cars on the street and there is more kids walking because this was the second year, right? Your class was the first year of the integration going to MMS, and now the incoming sixth graders are the second. And so next year is the third, and then we'll have all the school placement integrated with middle schools. But we haven't changed anything on our ends with where we're stationing our crossing guards. And when I've inquired, it's like, well, we have a list. The school district does a hazardous routes list or reports or studies. And I looked at that study, and while Prospect Street is broken down intersection by intersection from like Parker to Irvington and Irvington to South Orange, it's not broken down intersection to intersection from Parker to Tuscan. And I think it needs to be. And we have crossing guards at Harvard and Prospect, Tuscan and Prospect, Crescent and Prospect, that's 3 blocks in a row, and then nothing until Parker. So I feel like something has to be done, whether it's us, the school district, combination. We need to holistically be looking at where our kids are crossing and how they're getting to school. Mr. Wary and I have talked about this many times, and I understand that if you look at a map and you look at Google Maps, it's the same distance, plus or minus a minute, walking all the way down Prospect to the Crescents and then cutting up to MMS. But when you're actually a person, a human being walking to the village, you're not really going to go from Elmwood or Oakland all the way down to Crescents because there's a light at Valley and Oakland, there's a light at Valley and Oakview. It just makes sense to cut down. And so Mr. Wary and I have talked about if we don't have a crossing guard station there, then we definitely need to do more public education about where our crossing guards are and do targeting outreach to families in that area so they know to walk down to Crescents because, yeah, we have a list of crossing guards that we link to, but we don't actually point that out. But I really feel like we need to be doing an assessment of where our crossing guards are stationed and if where we have the current ones is still correct and do we need to add more. And I still think we need that data from the school district to show how our kids are getting placed. Like how many families are coming from Pink Flamingo or whatever that area is, by Parker, Richmond, Highland, Elmwood, and maybe there's a neighborhood that used to go to MMS that's now going to SOMS. And maybe we have a crossing guard when we do head counts, the head counts are way lower than they were previously. I just feel like it's something we really need to look at, and it's not something we can wait every 3 or 4 years. Like data, the reports from the school district, data was collected December 2022 to March 2023. You have a whole new school year with a whole new crop of kids that have been placed all over Maplewood and South Orange. So I just still not 100% clear on how we figure out crossing guards, what data needs to be collected to figure out if our current placements are correct or if we need to add more and how to move forward. So that's kind of what I wanted to talk about here.
Anyone like to talk?
No,
Yeah.
I would 100% agree with that. And also the idea around the crossing guards for pedestrians who are going to the train station. I can't tell you the number of times when I used to walk to the train station that it would take me 10 minutes just to get across Prospect because nobody stops. Even if there had been a crossing guard there, I wonder how the crossing guard would even get into the intersection because they just tear through. on that road. So I don't know exactly what is factored in, but I would like the commuters to be factored as a part of this crossing guard solution as well.
Yeah, so there's two things that I have to say, because I really think this is a two-part thing. There's something very immediate that we have to do, and there's something longer term. The longer term is what Committee Member Engel put on the table, which is we really need to get to the bottom of the what is the evaluation and assessment of these walking routes. I understand that it is the school district's burden to come up with a walking plan based on their hazardous routes to school evaluation, but they do that in consult with the township, with our public safety officials, with our engineers. And in light of the fact that we do have a lot more kids walking, and we want that, right? We are as you said so eloquently earlier, if we are a walkable community, then we want that. We want more people walking. We have to get to the bottom of that. We can't just keep saying, well, the school district, we don't know yet, and well, this is an us thing. This is an our burden. It is not the school district or the township. It's us working collectively. So that's the long-term thing. But before we get there, I honestly do not understand, and I mean no disrespect to anyone, please do not misunderstand what I'm about to say, but we attended the public safety meeting. We heard from parents who spoke not just about what happened that day, but they also spoke about their everyday lived experience walking through that intersection and all along Prospect. They talked about driving it as well. And I understand their frustration and their pain. Of course, their perception and their feeling is that we're not taking it seriously, because I think that we can do something about it immediately. Why can't we have a cop there to direct traffic until we assess for a crossing guard and until we make the other physical improvements as we continue exploring those and studying and evaluating and further assessing? Why not? If we have a cop there, the cop will do two things. They will make people feel safer. They will also deter bad behavior. Not always, right? Because we had a cop that was hit on Baker, not always necessarily, but we had a public safety meeting and people spoke up and they said, even with the cones and everything else, and by the way, those cones are ridiculous, come on, they're just, it doesn't last, right? I just feel like we are discounting the real fear here. And we're making other evaluations that are not meeting the real threat and the real fear. We're saying things like, well, if we put a crossing guard there, we're stuck with that crossing guard being there. And so what? So what? This is not like one person came to us and said, because of my student and what happened today, we should have a crossing guard there and there is no traffic at that intersection. We do have that, and that's happened, right? Because that's how responsive we tend to be. That's how responsive we tend to be. We respond to everyone. But in this instance, we have traffic data, accident data, and now we have a real incident that threatened the life of two lives. Well, the whole community is upset by this, right? So I just don't understand why we can't say, oh my goodness, this is terrible. Let's not wait another second. Let's just put a cop there and help direct the traffic. And, if there's a cop there, you're also doing enforcement a little bit, right? And people are slowing down. You're not just putting a couple of cones up and then 2 days later, those cones are not there. I'm not saying it's the fail-safe solution. I'm not saying that having a cop there is going to solve everything. It is not. But it does seem disrespectful on our part, our collective part. I'm not disrespecting anyone. It does seem disrespectful to the community after what happened and what we've heard. So now we have another chance. Tonight, we're not hearing just from parents. We're hearing from our students who came up here and barely got through their statement because they have so much emotion about this and fear and trauma. Are we going to be talking about this again at the next Public Safety Committee meeting? What are we waiting for? I don't understand. We had cops who accompanied the bike thing on Friday to Seth Boyden, right? We have special duty on Maplewood Avenue, in the Maplewood Village. This is what our cops do. Our cops are here. Is it a staffing issue? Let's figure it out. Let's work it out. But I think we've heard from the community that whatever the cost, as taxpayers, they want to bear it because they do not want to compromise their security. So what are we talking about? Yes, we have to evaluate these complicated things. And yes, we got to talk to the school district, but we need to act now. And in my opinion, there needs to be a cop there first thing tomorrow morning.
Absolutely.
That's it.
I do just want to thank Mr. Kittner for getting those cones up super fast, though, because I think that they have, I mean, maybe, yeah, they're being thrown around. I drive down Prospect many times a day, but I think that I just want to acknowledge that Mr. Kittner worked really fast and really hard to get that done.
To set them up. I actually watched a couple of the guys stop and put them back up, and a couple hours later they were mowed down again. But likewise, is in the whole discussion about putting a crossing guard in place and not being able to move them afterwards, is that an ordinance? Is that a practice, or is that like a requirement we have to? Because if there are intersections that aren't heavily used and everything, there's your crossing guard. Move them. The end. There doesn't need to be a discussion about it. If you've got the data, and can we please reassess? I don't know any industry in the world that does one assessment and then looks at it again next year. They go back periodically to check to see, is this still what we saw beforehand? As you stated, Ms. Engel, this is a whole new crop of kids coming with a whole new group of directions they're coming from. Last year's data ain't good enough. We need to assess every 3 months. And personally, I mean, as much money is being spent on public safety and various things, that's part of the job, personally. I think that's part of the job, doing those assessments every once in a while and coming back to say, hey, this intersection is heavy traffic. That crossing guard's valid. This one, not so much. So maybe if we find ourselves in a position where we don't need somebody, or we need a new person at a heavier guard spot, this is where they get pulled from. Maybe next year, we change it up again. So what? It's what the community needs, period. This doesn't sound like rocket science.
No.
So I just wanted to share some information because we did some studies already. We did a study in 2017, and this was part of a actually we did a study in 2008, and we did a study, 2006 rather, and we did a study in 2016. So we know that, and this is Prospect Street, and we looked at others. We looked at Burnett, and we looked at Wyoming and Valley. But on Prospect Street, it's a challenging street. There's 21 intersections. It's a long street, and there's a lot of intersections. 17 of those are unsignalized. So it's, there's a problem because people are crossing where there's no lights. We know that there were accidents. There were, let me just get this. For pedestrian, we had the most accidents were at Elmwood. This is pedestrian and bikes. And this is from 2012. So this is a 5-year period, 2012 to 2017. The most accidents were at Elmwood, Parker was next, and Harvard was after that. And then the others were Park, Crescent, Lexington, and Springfield Ave. So that was, there were 14 crashes in that 5-year period dealing with pedestrians and bikes. When you include cars, there were 143 accidents along Prospect Street. And most of them, this is all accidents, most of them were at Harvard, 163. Most of them were at Harvard and Tuscan, and then Oakview, Elmwood, and Parker. So what we did is we did a couple of things. We took the recommendations of the people who did the study, and we reduced the lanes. The lanes were 15 feet wide. We reduced them to 10 because traffic calming, people tend to drive slower when you compress the lanes. When you make the lanes wide, they feel like they're on the highway. So we did that. We changed Harvard to a 4-way stop. We changed the crosswalk at the Crescent, which was recommended to make it more in line with the crossing of the church. We changed that curve at Summer and made that 15 and did a lot of highlighting there. We did some work over on the south side of Springfield Avenue. So we did a lot of stuff. I don't think that, and then the proposal that we talked about at engineering, not at public safety, but at engineering, was to think about some bump outs at Elmwood and Oakland to make it easier to cross there. Because as you put bump outs, which are essentially you're shrinking the road from whatever width it is, you're bringing the curbs out, so you're making a shorter crosswalk. So that's what the cones represent. It's not a solution, it's not a replacement for crossing guards. It is what we would do permanently if we would create bump outs there. Because it just, as one gentleman said, it does make you slow down because you see the road all of a sudden gets tighter. But all these studies, 2017, 2006, 7, they don't deal with people disrespecting the law. They're predicated on if you do the engineering, people are going to obey this stuff. And, I think now we clearly heard from the parents and from the children here, we have a problem on Prospect. We have a problem in other places too. And we've got to take a look at, in addition to the engineering solution, what's the enforcement solution? What's the proactive enforcement solution with either using a police officer or a crossing guard? So after looking at all this stuff yesterday, I'm more inclined to think about that we should put some more crossing guards on Prospect, particularly after we got the map of the crossing guards and I saw how on Ridgewood we have crossing guards all over the place.
Right.
And that's to be expected because you have the school right there. You have a lot of people crossing to get to the high school or to the middle school or what have you. And also, let's not forget, you mentioned the commuters. The crossing guards also cross commuters.
Right.
You have a lot of people walking down to the station from that area, more so than in other parts of the town. So I do think that looking at Prospect, we did hear it's 12,000 auto cars or auto passes a day. That rivals, the most we have are Springfield Avenue, which is in the 20,000, and Valley, which is in the high teens, and then sounds like Prospect is number 3. We clearly have less controls on Prospect than we have on either of those 2 main roads. So I'm not sure we should be waiting to do any more studies. We got a lot of stuff.
I'm good with not waiting to do a study.
Yes.
I'm just trying to go to the people who weren't interested in this.
But I do want to put one thing on the table. We are not getting requests only from people who use Prospect. We get requests for crossing guards from other places too. So if we're going to move forward, then we have to look at it all over to make sure it's equitable.
Sure.
So I do think that given what we've talked about in engineering, we're going to continue to move forward with some of the traffic calming work. We're going to be paving that road in probably 2026. And at that time, we can think about striping and highlighting and signs and doing whatever. But in the interim, I think we ought to look at what more should we do in putting some additional personnel up there. I don't think it's sustainable to put police officers up there, maybe in the short term, but in the longer term, maybe putting some more crossing guards up there. I wouldn't take them away from where they are.
Sure.
But I think adding some more. I just think that there are more cars on the road. There are more people working. Unemployment's low. People are going back to the office. People are driving kids to the school. That's how families are. They have to move a lot of people in the morning. It's not like it used to be. So we have to, we're not going backwards. We're moving forward. And I think maybe after looking at all this stuff, we know the engineering work. I think we've got to take a look at maybe we put some more bodies up there to help people cross.
So for tomorrow morning, are we in agreement that we can have at least a cop out there until we get a crossing guard? I know we have a new crossing guard that is being trained and should be starting soon. I mean, what are we doing for tomorrow morning?
Chief? I hate to put you on the spot.
I thought it important for me to be here because this is, like you said, very serious. That's why I came out. I have children as well that cross the street. And I actually did some surveillance on them to make sure they were going to the crossing guard. They're crossing at the right place before. So what we have been doing, we have the traffic cones out there. We have officer dedicated in the area. This morning we had an officer with their lights on in the area of Oakview. We have been counting how many has been crossing at those corners. I've been out there probably for the last 2 weeks myself. You probably don't see me because I'm in the unmarked car, but I am out there observing. And, so what we were thinking was, and how we have done it in the past, is that we have the crossing guard at the crescents. So every time we send out a press release or information about where to cross, the idea is that if you're walking from Prospect to cross at the crescents, that's where the crossing guard is, or cross at Tuscan. Because down below on Valley, we have a crossing guard on Valley and Tuscan, and then they can cross at Valley and Baker. So you always hit a guard. So you're going down, it's a little further walk, but you're going down and you're seeing a crossing guard. When I was out there the other day, I was I observed 3 kids cross Oakview and walk down to Valley. But once you get to Valley, I mean, there's no crossing guard. There are lights, but there's no crossing guard. So, it's a small group of kids that cut through the park. So that's why they're going that way. They want to go through the shortcut. I just thinking that if we do put a officer on Oakview or Oakland, that now, once they get down the Valley, we got to make sure that they're crossing down a Valley correctly because there's no guard. We're dependent on the light. So the other way was just that you would see a human if you walk further and go around and down. I'm not sure if Oakland's the location.
Mm-hmm.
It might be Oakview. Oakview might be more. But again, that's going to take time to do a traffic study and things like that. But if you say for tomorrow, again, I would probably go with Oakview more so than Oakland. Oakview seems to be more, and this is just me observing, and out there that it seems to be more cars, especially crossing Oakview on Prospect going down. Oakland's kind of like you get to Prospect, and you got to make a left and you got to make a right. So if there is a guard, I recommend Prospect and Oakview.
So what I'm hearing you say is the way the crossing guards are laid out.
Right.
is that if you cross the street where the crossing guard is, that's going to take you on the route to where there's another crossing guard
Right.
to get you safely.
Right, and then you go down to Valley, there's another crossing guard on Baker.
So when they're crossing, unless they stay on Prospect, they cross at Oakland or Oakview. Unless they stay on Prospect and go to Tuscan or the Crescents, they're not going to have another crossing guard
Right.
down at Valley
Right, because the only guard is on Valley
and Baker.
Valley and Baker.
Yeah.
That traffic light at Valley and Oakland is actually a solid traffic light. There is a crossing signal. People pay attention to that one. I very rarely see people try to go around to the right of folks stopped at that intersection. So the
That's because
behavior
it
on
has a
Valley
left
is much better.
turnout arrow, that's why.
And the same at Oakview.
Yeah.
Oakview has the light too.
Right.
Right.
So the behavior's improved.
And a lot of the traffic coming up on Prospect is because Valley is doing the construction, so sometimes it's being diverted.
Yeah.
That's why you see the long lines on.
So Chief, with regard to the staffing, because, I mean, it's easy to, pound your fist and say, get a cop out there tomorrow, but you're the one who has the staff
Yeah,
to
so-
get a cop out there or not, and there are, 4 or 5 cops in that shift that have to be there are 2 by the high school,
One by the middle.
1 by the middle school.
And there's one that does Tuscan at the bottom with the barricades. So
Okay.
There's 4 in the morning, there's 5 in the afternoon.
And then
Dedicated officers.
and then those are 4 out of how many police officers on
The shift.
shift?
It depends.
Yeah, right.
Like, I don't like to discuss our minimums publicly, but we have minimum manpower. And a lot of times when the crossing guard is called out sick, our officers have to cover those corners. So we have 30,
Don't we have
Substitutes.
shifts that are
Cover each,
I mean, aren't they?
overlap.
Yeah, I mean, I know you don't want to talk too much publicly about how you do your policing, but
right, but we
do have sufficient officers that we could put.
Yeah, so we cover 4 in the morning. We have 32 corners. There'll be times where might be 4 or 5 crossing guards that are out. We have to cover those corners with our officers. But what we have been doing when we have more manpower, they have been on Prospect. So we actually hired 2 extra crossing guards, supplement, but they're already being used. You have crossing guards on long-term illnesses, and they're already being on the corner. But we could fill it when we have the manpower. We can put an officer there. The problem is when we fill it, and then the day we can't.
Enforce. If you,
Oh, he's saying if we don't have enough manpower, if we fill in one day and then tomorrow there's not one because they have to go somewhere else.
Once you
right?
make a
This is the
commitment, you
same,
got to make a commitment.
circular thing we've been
So
talking about.
if we put Officer Prospect, Oakview, and then we have all of our officers on corners, and we have we call one officer rolling, meaning he's the only one taking calls.
Right.
So we can't commit that officer, but there's times when we have plenty of officers, we can put an officer there.
right, and we can't commit.
Can I ask a question? Sorry.
Just one sec. We can't demand enforcement of speeding and things like that if all the officers are being crossing guarded.
But so we started a new traffic initiative enforcement, and I was out there this morning, and they are enforcing. They
Good.
enforced it, all of our shifts have been on Prospect.
Great.
We all have enforced tickets in the last 2 weeks, in other areas as well. So the enforcement is there.
I think that's what I'm hearing that we would need a lot more of. So it's good to hear we're getting more.
But the
Like to
thing
see
is,
that consistent.
enforcement is either before school starts or after school starts, because we just don't have the officers to enforce it during school.
Right.
It's either on corners or they're
Okay.
trying to respond to calls.
Ms. Engel?
Well, I just wanted to go back, why Oakview and not Oakland? I get when you're driving Oakland, you have to come down, make a left and go, but there's a crosswalk that cuts through Prospect. And I'm just thinking we will have Harvard, Tuscan, Crescent, Oakview, and then still none to Parker. Like, why wouldn't you move it farther down near Oakland or Elmwood, where the kids are coming from? 'Cause the people coming from Oakview in that area, they already have, they were always going to MMS to begin with. I'm trying to figure out how to make it safe for the new kids who are coming to MMS that used to go to SOMS.
I was sitting on Oakland, and I was trying to understand why, if there's someone in Oakview, I don't see why you would want to cross over, why you would need to cross over Oakland. You just walk to the next intersection and cross over Oakview. It seems like it's just a more busier intersection. You have cars pulling up And it's harder, to me, the sight is harder to see when you pull up.
But doesn't that show that it's a hazardous route, that maybe we need a crossing guard there because it's hard to see? Instead of moving it to a.
Yeah, but his analysis is that Oakview, because it's a straight T intersection,
Yeah.
it's a straight intersection, there's more movements where
Coming across over.
at Oakland, they're stopped because they don't
you have
go
to do the
across. You have to go that little thing, so it's a little different.
But I still think when you're walking, because Oakview is not that much closer than Crescent's. And so I'm just thinking about where the kids are coming from to walk to school and how they don't have a safe route. So that's the only reason why I'm asking, like, why not?
To get to Valley, Oakview is equal to Oakland, right? To get to Valley.
Yeah, but what if you're coming from, I'm just talking about when you're coming from Elmwood. I'd like to see the counts, like if you have counts of like how many people are crossing at Oakview and how many are crossing at Oakland, like those counts would
But
be
they
helpful,
can
I think, for us
also,
to
if
see.
you're walking on Prospect, whether you're coming from Elmwood or whatever, you can still walk, you're gonna have to walk that way to get to the middle schools or wherever you're going, or Tuscan,
You
so.
go diagonal, I mean,
Yeah,
I'm just saying.
I think we should.
I know, but diagonal, we can't.
Yeah, I'm good with that, but I just want to see, like, I've gotten feedback that we need data in order to change what we're doing with crossing guards. So all I've been asking for a few weeks, even before this crash happens, was what data is it that we have or that we use to make these decisions? And so I haven't actually seen any data. I haven't seen any counts. I haven't heard about how we decide where our crossing guards are. And so that's what I'm trying to understand. So you're saying from what you see, you think Oakview would be better. So I'll say from what I see, driving to CHS, driving to MMS, driving to work, all on Prospect, I think Oakland or Elmwood would be better, because also understanding where the neighborhoods are that kids are coming from and what the human nature, the part of us being human beings, of how we're gonna walk. Like, if you're gonna walk from, let's say, Highland and Elmwood, and you put it in your Google map, what would the route be that it takes you? Would it take you all the way down to Oakview or the Crestons? Because we're just servicing the same families that have always gone to MMS. I'm talking about there's a whole new community that's going to a different school than historically they've ever gone. This is only the second year. And there's an issue and 2 kids got hit. So that's where I'm coming from. Like, I just don't know. I know that not all my colleagues agree that I understand we talked about this at budget season, how we don't have enough personnel in order to cover everything, that sometimes crossing guard, you don't even know if a crossing guard calls out sometimes until someone's driving by, or I text Mr. Wary being like, there's no crossing guard. I understand that. And I understand that there's going to be budgetary, and maybe when budget season, we have to talk about it. So I understand that there's challenges in order to be able to get a police officer there tomorrow. I'm just trying to understand what data it is that we actually have to look at to make decisions versus what anecdotally I see when I drive, or anecdotally you, as a way more qualified than me in this area, sees when you're, in the area.
Right. So the accident data, like you were saying, where the kids are coming from, how we have to get that from the school, how many cars are coming through, complaints, all that. But it takes a while. But I know we need this immediately. And just from us counting last 8, I do think Oakview is better served. Now, when we do the full study, I could be wrong. It could be Oakland. It could be another intersection. But Prospect, you are correct. From the Crescents to Parker, it's a long stretch where there is no guard. But there's a lot of intersections, so we got to figure out which. If we get 2 officers, I don't know, 2 crossing guards. But if we have to pick one, I say Oakview and Prospect.
Chief, is there a possibility, there's a crossing guard that was put at South Pearson long before, a couple years before the signalized intersection. There's not a lot of kids that come down there. That crossing guard says that there's hardly any kids coming down there. Is there a possibility of moving that one since it's now signalized intersection?
Yeah. So that was the reason for the guard, because there was no signal there. There's a signal now. And there is not a lot of children that cross.
So
that could be that could be a possibility.
that could be someone we could move to Prospect, even if it's a temporary location, before we know for sure where it should go.
Do we know why when the school district had those 2 reports, one I think from like March or April, and one from May, and the May one listed intersection by intersection along Prospect from Parker all the way to South Orange Ave, but doesn't do it in Maplewood. Do we know why?
Called Stonefield today. I didn't, they said they were going to call me back. I didn't get a response.
Okay. I'm curious to know about why that is, because there are a bunch of crossing guards in South Orange on Prospect, and in Maplewood, it's just in one little area.
So what's the takeaway again? I don't want to end this meeting and not have a plan for tomorrow. When we talked about this at the last public safety meeting, not all 5 of us felt like we walked away from that meeting with the same impression of what we talked about doing the following morning. So what are we doing for tomorrow?
Okay, yeah, so I don't like this decision, you know, I don't like to make it myself. I'm glad we're here. We're all trying to get in agreement with this. Yes, I'll have an officer tomorrow, but if
Temporarily to guide
temporarily
traffic until we assess further.
manpower permitting, Prospect Oakview.
Prospect Oakview. So anyone, just like we should always be encouraging our children walking to school to not cross unless there's a crossing guard.
Right.
Then if they want to cross at Oakland and Elmwood tomorrow, it'd be best
And Elmwood-
because there'll be one at Oakview.
I'm sorry, I'm just, because we have all the cones set up, they don't even go all the way to Oakview. So I'm just, right, like, I'm just curious, like, we're doing a traffic calming measure in one area, but we're going to put a crossing guard outside of that area. I mean, maybe it's just me that's
I think the chief
confused
is
by it.
trying to respond to the immediate demand right now by the governing body to put somebody, and he's asked, where would you recommend putting a police officer to monitor the traffic tomorrow? And the answer is Oakview.
What about Park? That's farther down. Is Park also not a straight shot?
There's no, it doesn't
Doesn't
cross.
have a cross?
Well, there's no,
No,
I'm
you
looking
definitely
at a
don't
map.
want to send people to Park because when they get to Valley, there's
Oh, there's no light,
there, and
yeah.
No light.
We got a
Yeah.
huge problem of people crossing
This is
there.
why I'll
I'm
say
fine
that.
with your recommendation.
This is what I'll say, this is tomorrow. I mean, we can get on Oakview and put an officer there and do a count and realize Oakland's even a better place for that person. We can move them.
Shift them down. Okay.
Until because we're trying to figure out where the best place is.
I personally think Oakland, and I also think while you're there, Mr. Wary and I were talking about how there's kids walking to MMS down Oakland even before the crossing guards are out. Remember this morning we were talking about that? So it might be a good time to also get data to see
Yeah.
what time kids are actually walking to school. Because again, they're coming from farther distances, so they have to leave earlier. And
Last
then
year
you
we
can
made
do
those
counts.
adjustments to earlier times and different times, and we've
Yeah.
done it this year too.
Yeah.
Where there's kids walking further, they were okay with where the guards were. It's just that they left a little earlier, so
Yeah.
we try to extend the or switch or move the time a little bit.
So I do think like it might, if we had one in Oakland, we can also be tracking that, what time are kids coming down Oakland? Because there are, I mean, I drive to CHS and I see MMS kids walking down Oakland already when I'm coming home at like 7:42 or something.
Chief, I'm looking at the map, and Oakview is 2 blocks from where we have a crossing guard. Oakland is 7 blocks from where we have a crossing guard. So I know you're putting someone at Oakview, but it does seem like it's sort of that Tuscan centered as opposed to Oakland. So
Yeah, because that's where the
my
school
2
is.
cents too.
But that's
So-
where the school.
I understand that, but
No, but the school, but it's not where we're not talking about Tuscan, we're talking about MMS, and we're
no,
talking
but-
about kids coming from Clinton to go to MMS. So we're talking about the Clinton students, because those are the ones that were affected. They used to go to SOMS, now they go to MMS. So I think we need to look at the Clinton students and not put more crossing guards where Tuscan students are coming, because we have 3 blocks in a row of crossing guards.
Right, and it also appeals and is utilized by CHS students, because that's the route my daughter would ride her bike.
So Oakland for tomorrow? And
I think what I'm hearing from you, Chief, and maybe I'm wrong, is that regardless of how many streets, 7 intersections or 5 intersections, it's not like there's not a way to get to that crossing guard to cross in the safe space that was determined years ago when we're using the crossing guards as a guide. So we just talked about how Oakland, Elmwood, and Prospect is a more dangerous intersection because of its lack of symmetry It's not directly across from each other. So you have cars making more movements that are turns as opposed to going straight. So now we want to encourage kids to cross there by putting somebody there to be a crossing guard, when what we should be doing is putting crossing guard at a safer intersection and then a less safe intersection. So I'm confused as to why we would do that.
Because I don't know why we would have a crossing guard at Harvard, Tuscan, Crescents, and Oakview.
Because those are the routes that
4 blocks in a row, we'll have crossing guards, and then we don't have any more until Parker. I don't think it fixes the problem. How many of you would walk all the way down to Oakview to get to school? Do you even know where Oakview is?
Oh,
No, I'm serious. And also, like, I wasn't gonna say it, but like talking about kids being on their phone, like, it's so trafficky out there in the mornings that there's no kid looking at their phone when they're trying to cross the street. I see them. They're tentatively trying to step out because you can't see anything. There's cars parked, there's people driving, it's like chaos on Prospect. And so I'm just saying, I don't think in Oakview, I appreciate you saying you have a person available, but like, I just don't understand why we're not
Chief.
gonna put it right in the middle of where we have the cones, where we have the accidents, where the kids are walking. The Oakview, that's the same kids that always went to MMS. We're talking
Chief,
about
I think we appreciate your professionalism and your judgment, but I do think that we did make a call on our part at engineering that, and we did have our traffic consultants look at Elmwood and Oakland, and you know that has been consistently in all these reports. That has been a problem. Is that Elmwood Oakland area?
Yeah.
And so I would urge us to make a decision right now. I think I would be in favor of doing Oakland as opposed to Oakview.
Oakland.
I'm outvoted.
So, all right, we can do Oakland, but can we?
And you can come back
With
and assess it.
reassessment, absolutely, with
You know what,
reassessment.
I think we ought to start where we think there's a problem. We've already addressed that area. I think you're right, Ms. Engel, that we put the cones out there and we put the crossing sign in the middle because we think that's an issue. Why don't we start there? If you come back and say, you know what, this is how many people we crossed here, but we've been watching Oakview or Elmwood, and we think more people are walking over there, then we can
Yeah, I don't
take a look at it.
have the hard data, but I'm just going off my
I
observations.
understand that.
My observation I saw.
We respect
I
that.
observed a
but-
lot of kids crossing Oakview.
Yeah.
But
And commuters too.
Right.
A lot more commuters park
Okay,
on
a lot more
Oakview
commuter, yeah.
because they
Straight shot down.
walk straight to the train all the way down to Dunnell on Oakview. But I think the data shows, at least the old, from years ago, and some of our engineers have always talked about that problem of Elmwood, Oakland.
Because of the geography.
Yeah.
So we have 5 votes for Oakland.
Well, 4.
Four.
Why do we only have 4?
Because I agree with the chief.
Okay, so you're a no. You should say no. You can't abstain unless you have a conflict, and you don't have a conflict. You just don't want to take a position as the mayor in front of all of
What are
these
you
people.
talking about? I just said
You have done this before. Then you're a no vote.
Whoa, Mr.
You're a no vote.
No.
You're saying no.
I'm
She's a
asking,
no vote.
I'm
No,
saying,
I think we all said that we want traffic, someone there crossing. I think 4 of us say the best street is Oakland,
Right.
and one of us
said
says the
one
best
Oakview.
street is Oakview.
That's it.
That's the difference.
Okay.
that's the difference.
I miss
That's
her.
the difference.
Yeah. Okay, we have another discussion item.
Thank you, Chief.
Mr. DeLuca.
Okay, this is, talking about parking again. This is on Inwood Place between Maplewood Avenue and Woodland, where the Trattoria is. This would allow parking on the south side. Right now, we only allow parking on the north side, which is the former bank side. So that is a very narrow street, and it's gone through some changes over the years because we had the outdoor cafe that was on there, so we eliminated the parking on the north side because you can't have all that happening. So this would allow parking on the south side, and I believe this was an initiative of Mayor Adams to look at this. I think it would add 7 more spots. So it was looked at by Engineering and Public Works. Our engineer is recommending it. And the question is, do we want to put on the agenda for next meeting to move forward with it?
My vote's yes. I parked there on Sunday for the art walk, and it was beautiful. And the way they've got the cone, well, the paint on the road, you have to slow down. So again, when folks are looking at trying to park there, they're going to have to pay attention to where the painting is. You don't just whip around that corner like folks used to do anymore. There's now both sides you have to pay
Already
attention to.
striped.
So folks will have to slow down. Hey, I'm all for that. Slow down. The village is not 78.
Yeah, I think it was already striped.
I don't even know that you couldn't park there, so I'm okay with.
You parked illegally to run in for your pizza.
Beautiful. The parking
People
was
park there
right
anyway,
there.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Put it on for next meeting,
Woohoo!
I think.
7 spots, nice.
Okay, can I get a motion on the consent
I
agenda?
move the consent agenda.
Second?
All right,
Yes.
Staffis,
Yes.
DeLuca.
Yes.
Single.
Yes.
Mayor Adams.
Yes. We go to our next public comment on any subject matter. Is there anyone in the House who would like to comment tonight? Seeing none. Anyone online, Mr. Weir?
If anybody on Zoom would like to speak in public portion, please raise your hand now. I'm moving over Joan Crystal to panelist. Welcome to the public portion, Ms. Crystal. You may unmute yourself and address the committee.
Thank you, and thank you for the opportunity to talk about the situation on Prospect Street. I don't believe we had an opportunity during the earlier discussion to comment on the topic at that time. I'm concerned about the situation on Prospect Street and have been for many years. I live on Prospect Street. I've lived there for 43 years. I do not drive. I cross Prospect Street regularly. I know what the problems are. And they very much include speeding traffic, which is going way above the speed limit, include cars that are afraid to stop at crosswalks for fear of being rear-ended because of the speed the traffic is going at. And I know from personal experience that there are cars that will pass to the right. One nearly hit me and ended up on the sidewalk to avoid hitting me when they suddenly realized that a car had stopped for a pedestrian. I don't think that crossing guards are going to be enough of an answer. I really think we need to take a look at engineering solutions and enforcement. Engineering solutions to make the road safer, enforcement to try to do something to change the culture of drivers who are not driving safely. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else, Mr. Weir?
There are no other hands, Mayor.
Thank you. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second?
Right,
Yes.
Staffis.
Yes.
DeLuca.
Yes.
Single.
Yes.
Mayor Adams.
Yes. Thank you, everyone. Have a good